On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, Magnum PI carried a 9mm, Putin's escape plan, the Red Guard comes for the trannies, and Japan needs a monkey season. Okay, welcome back everybody. This is episode 266 of the John 1911 podcast. This is going to be a solo episode. It is, what is today? I guess it's August 1st, about 5 till 12. People are gone for lunch right now, and so getting a chance to get this podcast in. This is going to be a solo episode. Danny's not available today, and as we promised, we are getting episodes out more frequently and published publicly. So I guess a couple things. Well, I guess also I wanted to get this in because we're expecting heavy storms later today, and those of you that may be familiar with the generator issue, we have replaced the generator, the backup generator, in case the power goes out, but the switch is not replaced. So if the power goes out, it stays out until I run out there and switch it by hand, which would not make for a great podcast. So let's go ahead and bang this out now and get it published before we're all sitting in the dark. So I'm going to bring up something that I saw earlier this week, and it actually coincidentally ended up becoming an issue later on for us on our range. So I'm bringing up Terran Tactical. Now, I don't know Terran Butler. I know who they are as much as most of you know who they are, who he is. He's a very good shooter, good gunsmith, successful business, very good marketer. He's better in almost every way than me, except maybe for lifting in the gym. But he posted a video, he posted a video. It wasn't of him. And I didn't realize initially that this was one of his guns, and I'm still not 100% certain, but I did a quick Google search. And so somebody on his range has a gun called I guess it's an Alpha 5. And actually, when I put it on the rundown, it auto-corrected it and made it Aloha 5. So that might be the title of the podcast, the Aloha 5. So, and, it's a 2011 style competition-oriented type gun. I mean, I don't know that they're selling it as a competition gun, but anyway, what happened was the guy, and it's impressive, it's a neat video. It's double-stack 1911 9mm, and I'm pretty sure it was a 1911. I don't think it was a Glock. Anyway, the guy, he's athletic person, whoever the shooter is, and he takes the gun, and he pushes the gun. I don't know, I guess the gun's loaded. So he's got the gun forward, extended out a little bit from, about mid-chest high, and he cranks his hand backwards as fast as he can and then pushes the gun forwards. And what that does is the slide, it opens up the gun, and as he's pushing forward, the slide closes from the spring and it loads around. Then he proceeds to shoot. Super cool video, right? Very interesting YouTube content. That's why he wins. And, you got to give it to him, right? Great video. Well, I saw that and I couldn't help but wonder, how many folks, they watch these John Wick movies, which I've never seen. I know it's a weakness. Watch this video and think that this is a good thing, or think that maybe this is an advantage. I can rack the slide one-handed, for tactical purposes. And I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, oh, hell no. Like, this is terrible. And it reminds me of the first time I shot one of the modern, I guess it was technically labeled an STI gun, 2011 gun, but I believe they'd already switched to staccato, but the gun was roll marked as an STI gun. And I was asked to look at it and, give my opinions and shoot it. And now I put some of it publicly on the internet. This is before, we got the X9. And my biggest takeaway was, well, one, it's big. It, double fat. The 2011's a double fat gun because it's a 45 caliber frame and you're sticking all these 9mm in it, and it just wastes so much space. But the other thing I hated about the gun was how undersprung it was. And in the real world, underspringing a gun causes all kinds of issues. If the gun gets dirty or fouled, or if the maybe your lube isn't ideal and it starts to gel up. I mean, I can think of more reasons why an undersprung gun would be bad. versus why having one sprung that low, would be good. And the reason a lot of these competition guys do this is their goal is they want to have the gun shoot as flat as possible. And they'll describe that in different ways. They'll call it tracking the sights or tracking the slide, or, how flat it shoots, because they don't want the gun to porpoise. They don't want the front sight to go up when the gun recoils backwards, or the slide hits the end of its travel, hits the frame and tilts the gun up. They want to keep that to a minimum. And then when the gun closes, they don't want, as it closes, the front sight to dip down, which if you look under a high-speed camera, that obviously can happen as well. And so they try to get this perfect balance of this perfect spring and the weight of their slide and power factor of their ammo. And, when you make a video of these guns, I mean, they're just burning it down, like just super flat. And it's really impressive. But in the real world, that's not a good thing. And, I saw that and I was like, oh, I would just wonder how many people would, they don't even recognize that, hey, Taran Butler and Taran Tactical, they make, real guns for real people, but, that is not something to aspire to. I mean, that's for entertainment. That's not for real life. So with that being said, a couple of days later, published a video that we had filmed of a single stack Wilson Experior gun that we have. It's not a double stack gun. I was going to single stack, but it's more of it's a 1911 that is more traditionally built, but instead of it being a straight 1911 double lugged, over railed, all of this kind of thing, Wilson did a bunch of things to it to address those issues. Because most copies of 9mm 1911s, iterations of 9mm 1911s, especially single stacks, are just 45 caliber guns with a 9mm chambering, and that's really not ideal. There's all kinds of problems. I don't want to rehash all that. Well, I did not check the spring on this gun because I don't really shoot this Experior gun that much. It's kind of a backup gun. And when I mean backup, I don't mean backup to like a carry gun. It's a backup gun that just lives in the truck. And, I use it if I want to shoot some single stack drills, or just to have another gun, for whatever reason, maybe for another person, or, just to mix things up, or to practice, single stack reloads, or shoot with iron sights as opposed to the full size gun. Well, this gun, when it was sent to us, it's not really sprung for duty ammo. It's got a weaker spring in it. And so what happened was I put some hollow point ammo in the gun, the same hollow point ammo that we had bought and we tested the X9L in, and, started firing it. I don't know if we did 20 rounds, maybe. Maybe 20 rounds, not that much. And we got two premature lockbacks. And, that was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, the thing I'd forgotten, because I don't really pay attention to this gun, it's it doesn't have a heavier spring in it for heavier ammo, heavier ammo. And so what's heavier ammo? So hollow point ammo, 124 grain hollow point, loaded to, I don't know if it was loaded to plus P, but definitely on the hotter side, because, it's got the nickel case, and it's trying to be duty ammo. And so there's more recoil. And so what happens is, if it's undersprung, you get more vibration. And I suspect, I can't prove it until I get it on camera, but the recoil with the weaker spring was causing the rounds possibly to move up and down in the column for the magazine, or maybe I somehow hit the slide stop, but twice it prematurely locked back, and I didn't realize until afterwards. I didn't put a real spring in this gun because I don't really use the gun in that way. You know what? I should. And I want to finish that with just an observation, because this is just kind of relative to something I see on the internet. People just got to be careful. So, this Experior gun, it's probably the nicest 1911 I've ever owned. Not the most expensive, but it is probably it's an incredible gun. The fact that I would even want to keep a single stack 9mm traditional 1911 with with a, what's interior, I can't remember, an inside extractor inside of it, not exterior, not a internal extractor as opposed to external extractor. That's the word I'm looking for. All these reasons. It was so good. I literally thought I would keep it for 2 weeks and then send it back. And, it was like, oh my God, we got to buy this thing. Well, a gun that I'm telling you that isn't shot a lot, I don't really shoot that gun that much. That's still 1,800 rounds, in, I don't know, year and a half, maybe. I don't know how long we've had the gun. We haven't had the gun forever, but we've had it definitely over a year. It's still 1,800 rounds. And my point is, a lot of guys get on the internet and, they're gun people because they own a gun, or they're gun people because they bought a gun. And this manifests itself, in the 1911 world with the following observation, because this also came up this week. So, we've been doing more content with our new media team, publishing some short videos for all the Instagram reels, YouTube, whatever they, all this YouTube shorts. It's all those little short vertical videos. And, they're getting tons of traction. And we'd published something with the X9L, the double stack gun that I carry every day. And we had a guy roll in, and he's a 1911 guy. I'm sure he is, and if he's listening to this, I'm not trying to be a dick, because that's the fundamental vulnerability and weakness of 1911 people is they're dicks. They're dicks to each other, and they're dicks to other people, and it's not necessary. I don't really like that, but the complaint was, I guess the finish on my X9L is, it's some kind of spray on shake and bake finish. That's what I call them. Everybody's got a name for them. Cerakote, whatever it is. I'm not going to split hairs on it. I think Wilson calls this armor tough, maybe, or tough. I don't know I can't remember what they call it, but they call it something. And it's got wear on it. And this guy he's kind of running down the wear on the gun. And, I'm looking at this, which it's cool. I get it. But, I know most gun guys don't shoot. They buy a gun, so they own a gun, so they're gun guys. If they own an HK, they're HK guys. If they own a 1911, they're 1911 guys. You can't see my air quotes right now, my fingers. And a truism I have noticed in the 1911 world. Again, you see it in other groups. The SIG guys have their thing. The Glock guys have their thing. The H&K guys definitely have their thing. So it's not just the 1911 guys. But the general rule of thumb is dudes with 1911s that obsess on finish wear can't shoot their way out of a paper bag. They really can't. Because that's all they've got, is they've got their gun and they're worried about wear. And it's like, if you actually shot that gun, you wouldn't notice the wear. And as a matter of fact, you might even get to a point in life where you kind of like the wear. Wear your gun in, as opposed to buying one of these, battlefield finish, battlefield pickup. They talk about marketing. I mean, they look cool, but the factory wear, they make them look like my gun that I've been carrying for 2.5 years. And one of our old writers, Scott Mayer, I know he's out there. He probably listens, and he used to work at NRA and Safari Club and all those other places. He used to call it the stolen valor of guns. We have an old article on the website about it. And it's like, okay, this guy, he's complaining about this armor tough. And I just wanted to make a point. All right, I used to carry in the 90s, up until all through the 90s and all into the 2000s. I carried a 5-inch all-steel, carbon steel, if you want for the 1911 guys, all blued 1911, okay? So it has rust bluing, an emphasis on rust. And so back in the day, we didn't have all these shake and bake finishes options that were really good. You basically had blued and you had chrome. And your gun would rust, or if you had it chromed, because that was like, the guys would get it chromed. But then people quickly figured out, for real serious use, the problem with chrome is, number one, you get hydrogen embrittlement. So, if you chrome something and something goes a little off, suddenly you have parts cracking and snapping. And the other thing is, once chrome is penetrated or fails or is impregnated or punctured or, gets something through it, basically that corrosion now starts to migrate under that chrome and you can't stop it. And it causes sharp edges, kind of sharp edges, metal flaking, which, get in your gun, get in your hands, get in your eyes. It just sucks. Like, chrome looks cool, the brushed chrome and all this kind of stuff, but there were weaknesses. So the idea was, well, a blued gun, you can just have it re-blued, just wipe down what you can. And I remember carrying a gun, and this one story, like, if you look at my old work gun, my old 1911, there's a section on one side of the slide where there's these spots, and it looks like a rash. Well, obviously, gun can't have a rash. But that's from one incident, one day. And so what happened was, it was in the summer, and I was out all day on the range. This is with my old boss, and we were, teaching some kind of, I think it was like drawing from concealed carry, and the very, and like close quarters fighting, and CQB kind of, not ECQ, not CQB building stuff, but like, entangled fighting with your gun. And it is just a sweat fest. And so everything's got to be covered. Everything's covered with shirts. And so we're soaking wet. Students are soaking wet. Instructors soaking wet. It's literally 90 some degrees. It's the weather that you have right now. And just soaking wet. And we're on the range for 8 hours. Mind you, I'd been there an hour and a half before, and I was there an hour or so later. So, 10 hours on the range. And then when it was done, my boss and I had to drive into the city to go have a meeting with I'm going to be oblique because, protect the innocent, but with a media, one of the local media news type outlets, because they wanted to talk to my boss, an interview about something. And so, we drove separate. He gets in his car, I get in my car. I'm out in the range all day, soaking wet. Oh, leather holster too, by the way. Back in the day, we didn't have all this fancy Kydex. So, have to get in the car, blazing hot. What do? Turn on your air conditioning, and then, drive into the city for like an hour or whatever it was. And then it was go into the studio and sit there and babysit my boss in this nice chilly-ass television, radio studio place, and sit there for whatever. And so, we didn't get done until 8 or 9 o'clock at night or something like that. Then, hey, all right, see you tomorrow. Bye. Head home, download, and my gun's got rust on it. And it's like, that was the real world. And guess what? And the holster is soaked. Literally, the leather is soaked from, being whatever. And so the thing is, I got to get up at 9 o'clock. I think I got to work the next day, and I got to have my gun, and I got to have my holster. So either you switch holsters, you have a backup holster because your gun would hold all this moisture. And so I'm just remembering all of how it used to be. And I'm looking at the highlight wear on the shake and bake finish on this X9L gun. There's wear on the thumb safety. There's wear on the slide stop. There's, wear, I don't even know. I'm kind of looking at it. Just wear, around the gun, and, wear from it, being on a holster. And I'm like, I asked the guy, like, here's the way we used to look at it. Look at this gun. It's still black, and it's not rusted. That finish is great. I think it looks great. I think it holds up great. I don't get any rust on that gun at all. The only rust I get on that gun is on the GI plug, which is, I think, a blued part from Wilson as opposed to a shake and bake part for whatever reason. I don't know, but that gets a little bit of rust on it. And the screws, the bolts in the Kydex holster. And it's just thinking, dude, you don't know. Again, not being a dick, but I can just tell it's like, man, you really aren't, like, I can tell you haven't done a lot and you haven't been around a lot, because a lot of these 1911 guys, they get on these 1911 internet websites, except john1911.com, which is perfect. And, they just want to get in there and they want to just, oh my, and then you see the same conversations, and it's toxic, and it's irredeemable. It's, oh my God, my X amount dollar gun has a scratch on it. No gun for this X amount of dollars should ever have anything ever on it, ever. And I guess you got a Friday gun or a Monday gun or a whatever gun, on all these, and it's just these people circle jerking each other, talking about a little scratch on their dust cover or a little whatever on their gun, because they don't shoot. So all they have is to have a brand new gun, take a photograph of it, put it on the internet, and be like, I'm a gun guy. And this perfect gun with one little scratch in it. And I'm like, well, you should take it out and scratch the hell out of it. You should take it out. Try to wear that gun out. Try to wear that finish off that gun. Break something on that gun. Make it so you have to have something replaced on that gun. I mean, I think that's fantastic. If you're shooting enough to break a gun or shooting enough to wear something out, I think you've got something to be proud of, and so as opposed to the drive-by comment on the finish. And again, I'm not ass hurt on the finish comment. It just kind of reminded me. It's like, oh yeah, that's why I don't go to all these goofy gun forums. So now with all of that out of the way, fun story from my childhood, because I'm old like that. Everyone knows Magnum PI, right? Thomas Selleck, Magnum PI. He's this in the 80s. He's a private investigator that lives in the pool house of some rich dude and drives a Ferrari. Man, this sounds like some kind of gay-ass porn. So he's a private investigator, lives in a pool house, drives in a Ferrari, and runs around Hawaii and solves crimes for a TV show and chases women, and has a Colt 45 as his gun, because that's the gun he carried when he was a Navy SEAL. Back before everyone was trying to fake being a Navy SEAL, hardly anyone knew really what a Navy SEAL was really back then. I'm saying that to say this. So I saw a news article. I think it's come up for sale, or for some reason it was made public. That gun from the Magnum PI movie or TV shows in the 80s, there probably was more than one gun. It's a prop house gun. It's probably been deactivated or modified or whatever. It turns out it was. Turns out the original Magnum PI Colt 1911 is a Series 70 9mm, because it was, I've heard two stories. Either it's a 9mm because it was easier to get the 9mm blanks to cycle the guns, or some people will say the 9mm blanks were easier to get. But the reality is, here's a fun fact, as I know prop houses, we've done a little bit of it ourselves, nothing major. But 9mm ammo or blank ammo, those dudes, they tend to make their own blanks because they make them for different, they make, you see the dude shooting a gun on the set with a giant flame coming out of the front of it. Looks like it's loaded with propane. That's because that prop house made that, and they loaded that because it's made for flash, and so it's for effect. So they make a lot of their own ammo. So this idea that, well, they really couldn't get the 45 caliber blanks, I'm like, nah, they can get whatever the frick they want. They just, that's, I think, and I think I've heard that blank firing guns are easier to get the cycle with 9mm than say 45. And actually we have factory made blank guns around here, and actually they're all 8mm. They're all 8mm factory blanks, and so because we have done some stuff with that kind of thing. So but I just thought it was interesting. So it turns out I'm a big fan of the 9mm 1911. I think realistically, most 1911 all 1911 should be 9mm realistically today. Turns out, little did I know, in 1982 or 83, 84, Magnum PI was running around with a 9mm Colt 1911. Talk about foreshadowing. Okay, in world news, a couple stories that haven't been connected have caught my eye, and I wanted to talk about them. And I wanted to go into a couple of different ways you can read some of these headlines. So the first one, this was published on July 29th, so today's August 1st, and I saw this and I was like, man, that's a pretty interesting story. And it says, quote, Russia has prepared evacuation plans for Putin in case his army is defeated in Ukraine, claims Telegram channel, which also alleged Vladimir suffered from numerous health problems. And so it goes on to say, Putin preparing to flee Russia should he be defeated in Ukraine, report claims. Russian dictator aware of possibility of a sharp change of mood in the country. It is thought evacuation plans would take Putin's plane through Turkish airspace. And then, separate claims, reports that Putin's suffering ill health, cancer, Parkinson's, whatever. So, I'm looking at this and you're like, two things could be true here, and both of them could be true at the same time. And so, the first one is, it's like, okay, it's true. Like, not trying to overstate the article, but, the U.S. government has plans for everything. Somewhere deep in the bowels of the Pentagon is a plan to invade Canada. I'm just saying, like, there's somewhere deep in the bowels of the Pentagon is probably a plan to, another plan to invade Cuba. Like, I'm sure there's one out there, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that there's a plan, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's, it's on the front burner or that it's been updated or whatever. But again, this story is not a plan that's like requires a huge logistics footprint, but it probably requires one more than what you think, because if Vladimir needs to exit out of Russia, he's just not going to go out there with a shirt off his back. And then also you have to consider, when you look at a story like this, you have to, and I hate to use the word because it just really sets off the conspiracy minded people, but this is kind of how the media really is. You have to look at this from the idea that this is a disinformation campaign, or this is a campaign meant to hurt the Russians. And again, this story doesn't have to be, for all we know, there's a possibility that the American government reads a story and goes, oh, shit, why did you guys publish that? Because it makes it harder to negotiate with the Russians if it looks like you're portraying them as weak. And again, this is in a foreign paper in the United Kingdom. They picked it up from somewhere. Telegram channel, this suspicious Telegram channel in Russia, supposedly has been right with a bunch of things and has all these conspiracy theories regarding Putin, body doubles and cancer and ill health and who's going to be in charge and people being arrested and people disappearing. And some of it seems to be true. So, take it with a grain of salt, pretty interesting. And the fact that some of it seems to be true would cause the cringe factor for anyone that would find this story cringy, the Putin people or, maybe the American government people, it's like, no, this is not a good thing. However, how would this also hurt Putin? Because let's say it is true, but Putin doesn't necessarily want it out. Let's say Putin's not even planning on having to run. But again, they have the plans, right? Well, here's the thing. So let's pretend for a minute while we're talking as friends that, let's pretend that this is, this is John 1911 Russia. And, I'm Marky, right? And so I'm a low-level Putin functionary, and my caboose is tied up to the Putin train all day and every day and twice on Sunday because he's got the power, he's got the money, he's got the infrastructure, and I'm part of the apparatchik of the Putin regime, and I'm just some low-level guy somewhere, and you're listening to this podcast because I'm fluffing Putin and all, whatever. And so a guy like me, hypothetically, a guy like me would look at this and there's a chance that I could be like, what the fuck? Like, okay, if the plane leaves and Putin's on it, I'm sure some of his closest buddies are going to be on the plane or planes, right? Or whatever it's going to be, right? Like, it could be a whole fleet of stuff. It could even get a military escort out of the country. But it's like, I'm sitting here as a Putin person and I'm on my fingers and toes counting all the people that are going to be on this airplane. And I'm pretty certain my name's not on that list. What happens to me when Putin flees and then the purges come, or the show trials come, or the new guy comes in And, maybe maybe he doesn't trust all the Putin cronies and decides to come and shoot me in the back of the head. Reading a story like this, I could get real nervous. And a story like this could make Putin really nervous because there's 100,000 dudes like me going, holy shit, are you really leaving? So you have to look at the story and you have to say to yourself, what's the motivation of the story? What's the source? You have to look at it from different angles, and you have to look at it from, what's the goal of the story? Now, got that all out of the way, Putin maybe leaving the country, flying to Syria. It's like, Putin's got to, let me say this, and then I'm going to get on the next story, and it's related to this. Putin has a problem. I've said this before in this podcast. Putin has a problem. Castro had the problem. Kim's got the problem. Mugabe had the problem in Zimbabwe. Mao had the problem. And in many ways, Xi in China is going to end up having this problem too. How does a dictator retire? See, there's a lot of things that maybe foreign leaders don't like about the United States, and especially dictators. And one thing that foreign leaders, they're like, I can steal all the money I want. I'm secretly the richest. I've heard rumors that Putin could technically be one of the richest people in the world. He can't prove his wealth, right? But the one thing that American presidents can do, and this is something to consider in current political circles because it's important for the stability of our country, is American presidents, no matter how partisan things get, you get to retire here. You're done. Like, go write a book, buy a house in Martha's Vineyard, go eat Big Macs in Bedminster. Maybe that dude's going to run again. But, George W. Bush is out. Carter's out. Clinton is out. And they're done. They get to go make money, be private citizens, and you can't really fuck with them. And we understand, even the Department of Justice, we understand. And the Founding Fathers understood this too. You can't have a situation where if somebody's president and then after they're president, you're just running them down for the rest of their lives. The Founding Fathers were pretty smart in this. And, our government's set up to not have the justice system used in partisan ways. So, dudes like Putin, how does he retire? Like, incidentally, I don't know if most of the listeners know this, but Putin has built, like, the idea like maybe he could retire. He's getting older, apparently not that healthy, and he has a house on the Black Sea outside. They say it's in Sochi, and the common thing is it's in Sochi, where they had the Olympics. It's actually not in Sochi. It's so far away. It's technically not in Sochi, but it's on the Black Sea, and it's this giant mansion that half of it or more is underground. It's got escape routes, and it's got tunnels, and it's got stuff that comes out to the ocean. It's got its own docks and loading things, and it's set up in a way, and it was actually built through a shell corporation through one of these oligarchs, and it's worth, billions of dollars. And the rumor was, like, Putin doesn't own this, but he's the beneficial owner of it. Like, one of these oligarchs really built this for him, or was told to build, hey, Marky, you build me a house or I shoot you in the fucking head. So, like, yes, sir, I'll build you a house. And so, Putin has got a problem. It's a summer home. It's temperate climate, Black Sea. He could go down there and kind of semi-retire and, do what he wants and be private and live out his old age, even if he's not president anymore, whatever they call themselves in Russia today. But the problem is, now with all the mess in Ukraine and all that military activity in the Black Sea, the Ukrainians can absolutely hit this building. They can absolutely, he can't go there. I doubt if he was ever actually there, if he were there and the Ukrainians figure it out, they would try to make a run at him. I don't know if they've got the legs to do it or the ranges to do it, but they'd make a run at him. Just like how Zelensky, the Russians would make a run at Zelensky. Ask yourself this question, how's Zelensky still alive? I'm just saying he's a legitimate military target. How is he still alive? And all these people going over to Ukraine, cover of Vogue, meeting with all these people, doing stuff with the Cuomos and all this publicity running around Ukraine. I fear, they're doing it because, they support the thing and it's all about them, and, Anna Wintour and all these Hollywood types, they love Zelensky now, which is fine. But, if you're concerned about Zelensky's well-being, I wouldn't, because one of you dudes is going to lead a Russian missile right onto his forehead, and I wouldn't be anywhere near him, and I still think there's a good chance he'd get taken out. But anyway, I got sidetracked. Let's go back to Putin leaving the country. Another story, not related, was published. This I saw on CNN. This was published Friday, July 29th. Unrelated story in any sense of the word, but I'm putting it together. Headline: Russia is plundering gold in Sudan to boost Putin's war effort in Ukraine. It's like, all right. Okay, yeah, the Russians are, getting gold. So, Khartoum, Sudan. Days after Moscow launched its bloody war in Ukraine, a Russian cargo plane stood on a Khartoum runway, a strip of tarmac surrounded by red-orange sand. The aircraft's manifest stated it was loaded with cookies. Sudan rarely, if ever, exports cookies. Emphasis by me, but it's how CNN's writing this article. A heated debate transpired between officials in the back of the office of Khartoum International Airport. They feared that inspecting the plane would vex the country's increasingly pro-Russian military leadership. Multiple previous attempts to intercept suspicious Russian carriers had been stopped. Dun, dun, dun. Ultimately, however, the officials decided to board the plane. Inside the hold, colorful boxes of cookies stretched out before them. Hidden just beneath were wooden crates of Sudan's most precious resource, gold. Roughly 1 ton of it. So 2,000 pounds, 2,200 pounds of gold. So, that's a lot of gold. The incident in February, recounted by multiple official Sudanese sources to CNN, is one of at least 16 known Russian gold smuggling flights out of Sudan, Africa's third largest producer of the precious metal, over the last year and a half. So, okay. So I've set this up. The Russians are taking gold out of Sudan. I wouldn't blame them. Like, if I was Putin, I'd do the same thing. It's like, well, what could he possibly give to Sudan, to get their gold? Well, apparently the Russians, I know Wagner's been operating in Sudan, their PMC group, and they are apparently there's a dictatorship. Let's see. In exchange, Russia has lent powerful political and military backing to Sudan's increasingly unpopular military leadership as it violently quashes the country's pro-democracy movements. So basically, arms for gold, right? Intelligence, ISR, arms, anything that, they need, because, Russia makes all that kind of stuff, right? And Sudan's not going to get a lot of that. So, but here's the interesting thing that I just wanted to show you. Or mention it to you. So, there's the Khartoum airport, there's Port Sudan in the Red Sea, and Al Aibida processing gold from northeast Sudan. The plant is owned by a Sudanese front company for the Wagner-linked and U.S. sanctions Murray, M-E-R-O-E gold, Murray Gold. Sources say it's the nerve center of the Russians' gold smuggling operations in Sudan. Okay, right, you're hooked. I got you. The Russians are taking gold out of Sudan. Well, they're going to fly it. The article says they fly it, and they're not going to run it on ships, because if they're going to run it up through Ukraine, well, they can't run it through Ukraine. They wouldn't want to do it, and they're not going to get through the Suez Canal. And if they take the long way around to what do you call the Russian Riviera out there, Kamchatka Peninsula out there in Siberia, it would take forever. All kinds of problems could happen, right? Hell, piracy. The Russian, it would just be a mess, right? So they're flying this stuff. Well, here's the interesting thing, and the article doesn't connect the two, but I am. Russian transport planes are flying out of, I think, Khartoum and or Port Sudan, and they're flying to Latakia in Syria. And I guess the idea, and it's like, well, Latakia is a major military base for Russians in Syria. It's like, okay, yeah, well, that's true. That's the main reason why why the Russians were supporting Assad in their civil war. And like, what is Latakia? You may have heard Latakia. Well, what does Latakia mean to the Russians? Well, suddenly, most Americans who couldn't find Ukraine on a map, not trying to be a dick, but come on, just be real. Come on, could be real. Couldn't find Ukraine on a map. now know where Ukraine is, know where Poland is, and Romania, and the Black Sea, and the Bosporus Straits, right? And so what Latakia is the Soviet Union always wanted to have a base on the outside of the Bosporus Straits because they were afraid that NATO, if a war broke out in Europe, we would try to bottle up that fleet in Sevastopol and try to bottle them up in the Bosporus, and there'd be a big fight. And so the Russians would like to have military power on both sides of that strait to, quote, force the straits, right? So that's why this is connected. But it's interesting, like, I mean, I don't know how far these planes can fly, but, you know, there's not a bunch of people on these planes. I don't know how heavy they are, but it's, 2,000 pounds. It's a ton, right? Isn't that 2,000 pounds, 2,200 pounds? Why are they stopping in Latakia? Why don't they just go fly straight through into Russia? And I'm starting to wonder, maybe it's 2 for Russia, 1 for Latakia. 2 for Russia, 1 for Latakia. And it just gets me, wondering, maybe, they're Putin's keeping some stuff outside of Russia, which is common, again, in a lot of these places. As an American, you occasionally open up the paper and you'll see some story about, there was a story like, why are the Chinese buying up all the shit in America? And before that, like, why were the Japanese buying up all the shit in America in the 80s? Well, Japan was a little bit different. But, you see a lot of people in these not most stable countries, or if they're with the junta or the dictatorship or the party in power at the time, they will move a lot of their assets out of the country, or they will own things out of the country. They'll own houses or secret bank accounts or whatever. So if they want to leave, they can leave. And also, it's beyond the reach of their local government in the event that, accidentally their local government is no longer their friend anymore and tries to seize all their assets. This is common kind of thing. And it looks like maybe Putin's dumping some of this gold into Syria, which is super interesting. Now, maybe he's spending it, giving it to, maybe he needs to pay dudes off, or, maybe he's got his backup Sochi place there somewhere. And maybe, there's a big military base there. So I don't know, like, imagine Putin fleeing the country. And if he has to flee, like, what would the conditions of fleeing Russia be? Like a plane just taking off. I mean, would Russian air defense try to shoot it down? Would Russian fighters be chasing it? So would it have fighter escorts, protecting it? Like, is this like a red versus white kind of, the reds versus the whites? Like, what, you don't know what you don't know. But it's just interesting that maybe, an idea of maybe Putin, if he needs to retire or wants to retire, or, go through his final years in hospice care, that he's going to do it in Latakia with a big military around him and lots of gold to pay everybody off. So even after he's gone, it doesn't all collapse. Just, super interesting story. So one more story out of Ukraine that I thought, it's not connected to this, but it makes me wonder about the war in Ukraine. I just wanted to run it by you. So, look, the war in Ukraine, whether you're Ukrainian or Russian, is supposed to have some goals, right? It's a military endeavor, and you're supposed to do things to achieve military ends. That makes sense, right? The Russians have been doing some stuff as of late. Well, they do a lot of stuff that doesn't make military sense. Like they shoot missiles at the mall in Kiev, and blow up the mall and kill a bunch of people. These it's a way, it could be political terror, military terror to, don't let the Ukrainians think they're so smart. But, I'm starting to wonder if the Russian leadership, I'm not even saying the generals know this, but the senior Russian leadership is realizing, this war in Ukraine is not going to last forever. One way or another, it's going to come to an end. And there could come a day when it isn't politically viable to be able to shoot missiles at stuff anymore, because, it could cause all kinds of problems. Like, I don't know, let's say, I know it's not going to happen, but let's say Ukraine, whatever's left of Ukraine, becomes part of NATO. Like, there could becomes politically not feasible to be able to shoot a missile at whatever it is. Well, just a couple days ago, the Russians, this was published on July 23rd. The Russians, listen to this headline. Russia kills Ukraine's grain tycoon. Direct missile hit on Mykolaiv home wipes out one of the country's richest businessmen and his wife. And it's like, okay, I get it. Like, fine, he's a oligarch in Ukraine. I don't know, he might even be ethnically Russian or whatever it is. But, it's like, you got to ask yourself, what the fuck? What's the point of firing a missile at him? Like, I mean, that doesn't help you in the East. That doesn't help you in Kherson. It doesn't, help you fight, keep the Ukrainians from fighting their way back to be able to cut the water off in Crimea. And it's like, you look at this and you start to ask yourself, do the Russians even see that this might be coming to an end? So now they're going through their naughty list because they know the naughty list isn't going to be accessible, for the foreseeable future. Anyway, just questions you should ask yourself when reading the headlines. Okay, quick politics section. We're going to get in and out of this one because I don't want this to be too long, right? So, a couple things. You're seeing a lot of store. And again, this right now it is 12:31 on Wednesday, and I am offline because I'm with you, right? So I don't know what the latest headline is on this subject, but so I could be stepping on my own dick here, but just to make a point, Fox News is running stories criticizing Nancy Pelosi for flying to Asia, and Taiwan is not on her itinerary. It's like, oh my God, Nancy's, she's not, Taiwan's not on the itinerary. It's like, well, that's common. She's third in line to be president of the United States. There's been threats against her life. She's not gonna, they turned off the flight tracking information when she was going over there. And, she's bopping around. She's been to Singapore already, I believe. I don't know if she's still there. But I wouldn't be surprised if at some point that she does pop up in Taiwan. So, these short-term political headlines, primarily Fox News, what they want to do is, Nancy Pelosi bows to the Chi-Coms. And it's like, well, we don't know that yet. And so, it's a bullshit headline that's short-term thinking. And you very well in 3 days could end up eating it. And, Fox News does it just like the New York Times does. For example, New York Times, your friend and mine, Paul Krugman, who just a week and a half ago, New York Times had to put out all these corrections and all these different things that, everybody was wrong on. The Biden laptop was not Russian disinformation, and, they all these corrections. And Krugman had something in there. I think it was about, Krugman's like, you're right, inflation isn't transitory, and I got that wrong. And it's like, yeah, great, Krugman. Krugman's a Nobel Prize-winning economist, and he's this lackey dude that, runs around. He's on liberal media, basically carrying water any way he can. And it's like, well, hopefully the idea with all the corrections, they're going to stop carrying water. It's a week and a half later, Paul Krugman comes out and now says that we're not in a recession, and the definition of recession is changing, and this 2 quarters of negative growth doesn't count because reasons. And it's like, okay, Krugman, give me a break. Like, these people, stop listening to these people. I mean, all you have to do is ask yourself this question: if Donald Trump was president, would 2 quarters of negative growth, which very likely could have happened because post-COVID economic strife, would Paul Krugman be saying the same thing? It's not really a recession because of all these different reasons, and we have to redefine. It's like, no, he wouldn't. He'd be out there screaming bloody murder, orange man bad, doesn't know anything about the economy. And so, these people, once you realize that they're just ignore the shit out of them. Just ignore them. So, and also then Politico, this was interesting too. So, it's become popular on the left, when who was the governor from Arizona? The Jan Brewer, was that her name? The blonde woman that stuck her finger in Obama's face on the tarmac, and she's terrible. And then all the stuff in Texas that Abbott does. They talk about the border and racism, and it's not illegal immigration, and there's no such thing as illegal, and all you get all that, right? Well, Texas has been busing these migrants they're catching because they're so overwhelmed. They can't house them all. They can't feed them all. They can't deal with them logistically. So they've been busing them to New York, busing them to D.C., and I think they were planning on busing them to Delaware. And it's like, oh, this is cool. And they're like, we're getting them out of here. And so now all of a sudden, the mayor of New York and the mayor of D.C. are complaining. They're like, they're tricking these migrants into coming here, and this is a crisis, and we need the National Guard and the military to stop these buses. And it's like, really? I mean, it's like, why don't you have the National Guard and the military stop them at the border? I mean, it's just one of those things where you read that and you're like, oh, come on, guys, just give it up. But, you love seeing the hypocrisy in the media. Okay, pop culture question, and I'm going to go ahead and go with hypocrisy and just kind of roll right into it, get in and out of it quick. So, racism, immigration, racism. And so there's a story out of Mexico City that got a little bit of play. And basically what it is residents in Mexico City, Mexico, because they're Mexican, are angered by all these American expats, that's the fancy word, Americans moving down to Mexico City. I didn't know Mexico City was a place, but if you think about it, logically, you want to be someplace where you have amenities and support structure and stores and shopping and all this other kinds of things. And Mexico City is in many ways like Washington, D.C. It's where the pretty people live. And so there's apparently entire areas of Mexico City where everybody speaks English. All the waiters speak English. A bunch of the food, I guess things are in English and American. And a lot of the locals are resenting it. They're calling it the new colonialism. And like this, it's an invasion. And, and these are the kinds of stories that never get run here in the United States. And here's why. I used to work in Mexico. I've worked in Mexico back in the 90s and into the late 90s. And if you want to talk about a racist place, most Americans don't understand this, but there's all kinds of different class, race interchange in Mexico. So, for example, here's a point. In Mexico, there's again, this is, don't come at me. Don't at me, bro. I'm telling you this. This is what I saw down there. I'm using their words, not mine. Miss me. Don't. I don't give a fuck. In Mexico, there's a concept called a high Mexican. And you're like, what the hell's that? And so there are Mexican nationals, born and raised, been there for 500 years. Yeah, right? 500? Yeah, 500 years, 400 or 500 years. That basically they are descendants of European settlers from Europe, right? So a lot of them will look what I would call European. Some of them have blonde hair, light skinned, fair skinned, and there's a caste system between a high Mexican in Mexico and like a lot of the Mexicans. If you look at them, they tend to be very small, dark reddish type skin, jet black hair, and they're more Indian, like Mexican Indian. The Indian culture that was down there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years through prehistory, like those people. Well, they're all Mexicans. Well, in Mexico, there is a difference on how they're treated, and not all Mexicans are equal to themselves and each other. And so there's the high, again, their term, not mine, high Mexican, and then I don't know, I can't remember what they didn't call them low Mexican. Maybe it was, I don't know what, I can't remember what they called the thing. So, and so this race and class thing that happens in Mexico that never gets covered in the U.S. at all, because America is all about racism, and we're the font of all racism in the world, and racism doesn't exist anywhere else. It's like, oh really? Yeah, because I can tell. Here's another example. Like you don't shoot guns. I can tell you don't travel either. So think of it like this. I'm trying to think. Who's the girl? Who's the actress? She's literally Mexican. Not Hispanic, but she's Mexican. What is her name? There's an actress. She's pretty popular in the U.S. She's done a lot of work with Antonio Banderas. She's got big boobs. I think she married a billionaire. What is her name? I guarantee you, all of you know who this woman is. She's a Mexican. Now take some working class guy who, is 4'5", 4'8", I don't know, 5'3", and he's digging ditches, and he looks, if you were to take his work clothes off and put clothes on from the 1500s, from whatever empire that was down there, he would literally look like he came out of Central Casting. So I'm just saying, like, it's just super interesting to see that story come out of Mexico City. So now another story which I thought was interesting, which to me is an example of complete bullshit in U.S. media. There's all this drama about the PGA versus the Live Tour. I don't know if it's Live or LIV. So I don't golf, like, whatever. And fun fact, I've golfed 3 times. The first time I went golfing, I got hit in the head by a driver, like, for real, because I didn't realize you couldn't stand behind the dude swinging a golf club. Hit me right on top of the head, almost knocked me out. Second time I went golfing, the guy, I didn't know you were supposed to turn your knee when you swing that golf club, and so I almost blew my knee out when I was swinging. I was like, okay, I'll try this, because I was invited. I guess, like, SWAT guy, whatever. So I was like, oh, fuck. And the third time I went with him again and gave me a knife. They're like, hey, man, here's a knife. We're making whatever. It's a folding knife. Oh, thank you. And I put it in my pocket and ended up later in the day putting my hand in my pocket. The knife had opened up and cut my hand open. So I'm bleeding all over the place. And it's like, this is a sign from God. Marky shouldn't be golfing. So anyway, so the Live Golf Tournament, right? And I guess all this drama, PGA versus Live, and it's like the Live or Saudis, or it's Saudi money, and there's people standing outside, 9/11 and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, this is all bullshit, right? Again, I don't care about golf. I do not care. I do not care, but I care about business, and so all of a sudden now everyone cares about Saudi money, all right? And like, Saudi's evil. That's interesting because, the Saudis do a lot, to help us fight terrorism. I'm not saying that there's not a bunch of Saudis that weren't involved in 9/11. I'm not saying there aren't members of the royal family that were involved in 9/11. I'm not saying any of that. But, you can find some dickhead anywhere in America that's done something terrible, or 5 or 19 of them. And, you can make an argument, whatever is convenient for you politically. But I'm just going to make this point here. PGA golf versus Live Golf. All of a sudden now, oh my God, Live Golf. That's funny. No one gave 2 shits about all these F1 racing car series that happened in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. No one gives 2 shits about all these tennis matches that happen in that part of the world. They give big money to all these big name tennis people to go play tennis matches over there in the hot ass sun. How they get them to do that? It's not prestige. It's the Saudis want to try to diversify, and they want to have tourism, and they want to have sports, and they want to build these other brands, or people that are trying to build brands, and so they throw a ton of money around, and they do, and they no one cares about any of that. Oh, horse racing. The Saudis are big into horse racing for years and years and years and years and years. A bunch of Saudis love horses. They show up at the Kentucky Derby down the road. They have these horse races. They buy the horses. No one cares about any of that. No one complained about all the soccer matches that have happened, and World Cup soccer and all this. I don't even know if you guys know more about soccer, but you telling me they've never had soccer matches associated with the Saudis or anybody else over there in the Middle East? But suddenly now Live is the Live golfing thing is the end of the world. It's probably because Donald Trump is into it. Donald Trump's a businessman, and he's kind of an angel investor, and he likes to invest in things that, might catch on, and he makes some money. I think Trump needs the money, to be honest with you. And, heck, yeah, why not? But I think kind of it is just kind of bullshit. So speaking of bullshit, like, there's another story. It's coming out of Florida, and I'm going to just read this as kind of a headline. It's Ron DeSantis looking into new drag shows at brunches that also has little kids in attendance. Headline from the UK Daily Mail. Ron DeSantis administration orders investigation into Miami restaurant that hosts drag brunches after, quote, nude dancer paraded young girl through the crowd, which could make it lose its liquor license and put it out of business. And it's not a good headline, and there's some pictures, not good pictures. And, topless, blurred out, little kids. I'm looking at some pictures here. It's nothing. I mean, well, it'd be pornographic if it wasn't blurred. But, and it's like, all right, I'm just going to make a point here, okay? This is not that hard to deal with. Like, this isn't a trans issue or a LGBTQ. It's not one of those. This is none of this. Look, I like strip clubs. I do. It doesn't mean I want to live next to one, but because that's where you have zoning and you have licenses. And then also with strip clubs, there's liquor licenses. And if you've ever been in a strip club, I don't go strip. I mean, I'm 50. I don't do that stuff, but I'm quite familiar with them, right? And so, you might go into strip clubs that, maybe they only do pasties, or maybe they do topless, but they have alcohol, or maybe they're technically it's not really a bar, it's a private club, and you buy membership, and then the alcohol comes from next door, and all this and that and whatever. The reason all of this happens is because zoning, liquor licensing, and erogenous zones. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're Playboy Playbait of the month, or you're, I don't know, trans play person, he, she of the month in Trans Magazine. It's all the same license and regulation. It's, liquor license, erogenous zones, underage drinking and attendance, and contact, and zoning. And nothing in that is trans or not trans. There is no way this stands. There is no way in the real world, if this wasn't trans bullshit already, that they literally the local ABC crew wouldn't be shooting the locks off the door to come in and shut that shit down. Like if this was Mons Venus, all right, if Mons Venus had a bunch of little kids running around, all these naked people with their liquor license, that shit, they would jump in that with both feet. So again, don't overreact, but also don't have a double standard. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. What's good for the chicks with sticks is good for the playmate of the month. The bullshit's the bullshit. This is not hard. This does not have to be a pop culture issue. This does not have to be, a pop culture story. Okay, final pop culture story, and we're going to go ahead and get out of this and get the police blotter. But I thought this was worth mentioning because this is an example of the media and movements. You know what? We're going to read you the headline. So here's the headline. Non-binary transgender, hold on. I don't know if it's a lot. Non-binary transgender shows Jesus Christ. Non-binary transgender social justice warrior and author Breath is canceled by woke internet mob and labeled a quote war criminal unquote after her job at defense giant Lockheed Martin was exposed. So you're like, what in the fuck am I even reading here? So just long story short. So this trans person works at Lockheed Martin. Hey, professional, white collar, whatever, white collar, works at a fancy, Lockheed Martin's a real job, right? I mean, come on. I mean, that's probably very educated and whatever. So also this trans activist, Anna Mardell, who is an author whose books have sold thousands, I guess is being doxxed by somebody on the internet, social media, basically like, you work at Lockheed Martin, you're terrible, Lockheed Martin commits war crimes, and so therefore you're a war criminal. It's like, number one, you obviously don't know what a war crime is or how this works, but Lockheed Martin does not commit war crimes. What this is an example of the Little Red Guard going around in the Cultural Revolution in Maoist China and putting their teachers in prison and putting their parents in prison. It's a power play to tear people down so they can show their power. And it's like, all right. And it used to be cool to tear down dudes like me, a 50-year-old white guy, right, in middle America. You can come burn my ass to the freaking ground. No one cares. Maybe in 3 years I might get a judgment against you, but I still lost. But now they're coming after this person is not just transgender. This person is an activist and author that is apparently well known in the transgender community. And so someone reached out to this person. I'm gonna say woman. This person, I'm not being a dick. I'd call this person. If I was at Lockheed Martin and I interfaced with this person, I would be yes, ma'am. Because again, I don't care, and you know what, you shouldn't either. Again, if you're not in a school, you're not in a strip club, where no one's fucking naked and there's no goddamn kids, you can be ma'am in your personal life. It doesn't matter, okay? But anyway, so they got this woman. This woman Mardall went on to say, quote, "I got this particular job because my family works for the same corporation. I also stay because I am on an unusual part-time arrangement for medical reasons. I stay because I'm on an unusual..." They're repeating it. It's hard to find... here we go. "It's hard to find a remote work-from-home job that will give me medical insurance, but let me work 10 to 20 hours a week." Okay, all right. Hold your horses. Full stop. What did I just read? What I just read is this trans person is working for a major company that's probably on the New York Stock Exchange, maybe in the S&P 500. I don't know, but Lockheed, whatever it is. Okay, gets full bennies, right? Gets full bennies, gets to work from home, only has to work 10 to 20 hours a week. Doesn't have to work 40, work 10 to 20 hours a week. So this person has enough time to still be a trans activist, write all these books, and promote all these trans ideas. And apparently, this company, which I've already forgot, Lockheed Martin, makers of the stealth aircraft, by the way, they are known as number one or a leader in for disability inclusion. I guess this person's also got some disability. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, so this woman, this trans woman, is sitting in the catbird seat, working from home 10 to 20 hours a week, with full bennies and time to do whatever her passion project is, and has the full support of Lockheed Martin. And again, when she is talking about this, she won't name the company. She's like, I work for a major company. She won't say Lockheed Martin because she knows the game. They know who she is, and she knows who they are. But again, you do what you're going to do in your private time and don't drag us into it. But no. So she's in corporate America. She's got everything she wants. She's got acceptance. She's got a career. She's got, a safe workplace environment. But oh, no. Little Red Guard decides this is not good enough, and so I'm going to throw you in prison with the rest of the losers and kowtow before us because it's really about power. It's like there would have been a time when this little Red Guard person who doxed this woman, this trans woman, would have been like, how dare Lockheed Martin not give her a job? How dare Lockheed Martin not let her work from home? How dare Lockheed Martin not give her full medical, human right medical benefits? My point is, this story does more than anything I've seen in a long time to give the lie that any of this drama that's really been going on past, I'd say 5 years, 6 years, has anything to do with right and wrong, a liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, human rights, or making the country better. This is about power and using that power to destroy your political enemies. And if you hurt people, but you can help yourself and promote yourself, all the better, because it's all about you. And it's like, this is terrible. And, I hope Lockheed Martin doesn't fire this person. And I hope the world, whoever this anonymous doxing person is, that wants to destroy this trans woman, I hope she gets, I'm over canceling people, but it's like, I hope karma gets you good. This is ridiculous. Everything that you want, everything that you stand for, everything you're shoving down our throats that we're supposed to, be for. And if we even take a pause and go, do we really want to do that? Suddenly, bigot, racist. But now, nope, this isn't good enough. Got to destroy her too. Shoo. Okay. All right. So, police blotter, and we're out. This is going to be quick. I know I say that every time, but this is going to be quick. I'm not even going to read the headlines. I'm just going to give you the basic thing. So, update, a model who was arrested smuggling dope into Australia I think has been sentenced to whatever it's going to be. And you know what? I think she's going to do some time, or maybe it's just whatever it is. But in the media, the reason I picked it up, we covered this a while ago. It took a year and a half or two to adjudicate. But she's known as the cocaine Choochie. And so I was like, maybe that'll be the headline. So there's another story out of the police blotter. And it's a police blotter story out of Japan. I don't think it's Yokohama. But anyway, I've gone on record as saying I don't care for monkeys. I'm not anti-monkey, like, oh my god, like, more shit to ban me on. But I've known dudes that have had monkeys, like pet monkeys, and I don't think they're good animals to have as pets. I'm not a big fan of having snakes as pets. I'm not saying you shouldn't have monkeys as pets. I'm not saying you shouldn't have snakes as pets. I'm not saying you shouldn't have all wolves or tigers. Or you do you, bro. As long as it doesn't become my problem. If it becomes my problem, I'm the problem solver, okay? And so apparently in Japan, there's a bunch of monkeys running around terrorizing citizens, and what these monkeys primarily are doing is they're going after little kids. They're trying to kidnap babies and small children because they're of a size that the monkeys feel like that they can deal with, and they're attacking them or trying to hurt them or kill them or whatever. And nobody's been killed yet in Japan. There's always been some incidents of this happening in India. And I didn't know there were monkeys in Japan, to be honest with you. And I question how monkeys got to Japan. I wonder if they were, like, it's kind of like, what's that? There's a plant, a honeysuckle plant that's invasive to the Ohio Valley region, and somebody brought it. And basically, even if you're in areas where the greenies are like, yeah, don't touch the forest or don't do this, but like honeysuckle, burn it with fire, and it's everywhere. So these monkeys running all around the city, and like literally kids are in the schools, and there's video of the kids, like the monkeys looking at the kids through the windows because they see the kids in the school, and they're waiting for the kids because they want the kids. I mean, this sounds like a horror movie. And I guess authorities in Japan, I guess, have technically euthanized one monkey because whatever the monkey did, they were like, oh, you have to die. And even in Japan, like, oh my God, what did that monkey do? Like, that monkey tried to make a nuclear bomb. So, you can tell this is the difference between Japan and America. And I could say Texas, but I'm going to say America, because let me tell you what, if we had this problem here, we would do the same thing that we did with a lot of these predators, which is what this is. We would have a season. I mean, and be like, and it would be shotguns. Oh my God. I mean, we'd be wiping these fuckers out. And the thing is, this goes back to a couple podcasts ago, humans are the apex predator on the planet, and you can't deny that, because we affect everything, whether you're green, whatever. I mean, like, we have the guns, deer shooting back at us, right? Even sharks, like, we've got all the tools and the cages and the depth charges. We can do whatever we want to sharks if we want to. Yeah, if you square up with a shark, maybe mano a mano, but, why would you want to fight a fair fight with a shark, right? Because we're the apex predator. And so my argument is, with a lot of animals, is live and let live. I don't go out and just screw with them. But if animals decide, they know that we're the apex predator, and they decide they want to fuck with me, man, I wipe them the fuck out. I mean, I mean, this hunting season of monkeys in Japan brought to you by Federal Buckshot. I mean, it would be, like, what are we doing here, Japan? I mean, look, in America, if a bunch of monkeys are coming after your kids, I mean, it would be, the local sheriff would be like, we're going to go out there, and we're going to find monkeys, we're going to fix the monkeys, and we're going to finish the monkeys, and we're going to do it for the children, and that shit would be on. And we'd shoot every one of those monkeys until the only monkeys left were like, thank you very much, may I have another piece of popcorn? And that's the only way to fight this, because they're apparently learning from each other. And what I'm saying may sound a little bit like bravado and podcast bullshit, but keep something in mind. It is a known thing in the Wild Kingdom world that, animals that start eating humans, whether it's a bear or a tiger or whatever it is, and it gets a taste like, oh, I can eat that. I can eat that hairless ape. We find it, we hunt it down, and we kill it because we're the apex predator on the planet, and we have to stop it before it spreads, or they'll do it again and again and again. And it sounds like people in Japan haven't quite really grown up and faced reality on the on the whole do it for the kids monkey front. So final police blotter. This is coming out of Russia, and there's the issue going on with Brittany Griner, and then there's a former Marine FBI guy. I know he's a former Marine. He's in Russia. I don't know if he's an intelligence guy or they're accusing him of being an intelligence agent, or they might have grabbed him, because of Victor Boot, who's the arms smuggler that we finally grabbed. I know quite a bit about Victor Boot, and very interesting guy. Like, I should say that for another podcast. But there's a dude. So all this is going in the media, right? And so there's a dude in Russia, his family and he are complaining because they don't seem to be on the short list for the exchange. They're U.S. citizen, and why aren't we being included? Like, this isn't fair, and the Biden administration sucks. And it turns out this guy, he is a school teacher. I don't know what he teaches. He's an American citizen, and at one point he's worked at the Russian embassy or consulates. He's worked at the Russian American schools, and he was caught bringing dope into Russia with the intent to distribute it and smuggling. He was like, I'm just going to give it to some of my friends or whatever it was. And then the Russians, because again, there are Americans in Russia associated with, the embassy. There could be intelligence assets. Like, they're all monitored. When he was arrested, the dude's wife, who's living in Russia, was seen throwing contraband out of windows of their apartment because the cops were coming. It's like, well, they're under full state surveillance because it's Russia. And so this guy is complaining because he's basically, I don't know, look, he's educated, and he's I'm sure he has all the right friends and all this and that, but for some reason he doesn't seem to be on the list with the transactions with Brittany Griner and whatever. It's because you're a freaking dope dealer going into Russia, and sometimes we can't help you, dude. It's like, I'm sorry. Well, anyway, this wraps up 266 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links of anything we discuss, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.